This is Peter,
And this is Tom.
and you're listening to History Teachers Talking Podcasts. All right, this is Peter Zablocki and Thomas Reska, and welcome
Hello.
back to our podcast. Tommy, we try to, we've done this twice before, right? We try to always have some kind of a, not spooky, but Halloween theme.
We try to theme it
say.
out. Right? We did
Right.
vampires,
In
right?
October. We did Dracula, right?
We did Dracula.
vampires.
We did vampires. I think we did zombies, right? So we're trying to theme it out a little bit.
Theme it out. So what do we got today, Tommy? What do we got?
So today we're going to look at urban legends and really how they became part of Americana. And we'll look at some spooky urban legends from different states and just that pop up all over the place, like some truth behind them. You know, this isn't a urban legends podcast. I know there are probably thousands of podcasts that are dedicated just to urban legends. So if any of these ones that we talk about today, you kind of pique your interest, I'm sure you can find podcasts out there just on that particular urban legend itself, because they are everywhere. A lot of the ones that we researched, I've heard about before. A couple of them I've actually, I wouldn't say experienced, but like went to the place. I remember when I was when I was younger, in the youth, right? Those days, right? The rebellious, crazy youth times. But yeah, so we'll talk about a couple of these and just see which ones interest you out there.
Yeah, and again, this is just an overview. However, if you look at urban legends overall, some of these you've heard before. I mean, there's first of all, there was a terrible movie in '98, Urban Legends. Do you remember that movie?
I remember it coming out. That was like when they started making all those movies based on
on urban legends,
Final Destination and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they tried to make all these horror movies and everything, which is success of like Scream.
When I was doing this research for urban legends, I realized a lot of them have really just become your typical movies, like movies that I know, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, like all those movies are actually original stories stem from some form of an urban legend. And I didn't know that. Like I thought it was the other way around. So what are urban legends? Urban legends typically combined secondhand narratives, right? Kind of like, oh, I heard this from a friend of a friend, or my grandma used to tell me this. They're always, now it's changing a little bit, but they traditionally were always passed on through just word of mouth, people telling stories. Yeah. And there's always some form of contemporary setting or like a familiar everyday object that's near it or within the story.
Like food, travel, right? Things like that, yep. Shopping, pets, anything that like something to make it like recognizable to people, basically.
Yep. They're also known as contemporary legends. So they kind of stem from this idea of old folklore, folk tales back in the day. 1700s, 1800s, you would have someone sit you down and be like, oh, there's this folk tale. But these are more modern, right? I mean, the term urban legend really doesn't come into play until 1960s. I believe 68 is the first time that a professor of folklore studies actually described this new phenomenon.
That's basically what this is, right? It's modern folk narrative. That's what it is. Yep. It's modern day folklore, and it travels a lot faster with the advent of emails, and then obviously social media today is that alone sparks hundreds, probably thousands of urban legends.
Absolutely.
Social media alone.
And one of the first ones that really came out in 1980s. So the term itself first was used in 1960, 68. And then 1981, it was a publication where the phrase became popular. It was a publication of a book called The Vanishing Hitchhiker, American Urban Legends and Their Meanings, John Harold Brunwand. And he basically collected all these stories of these like more well-known contemporary legends. And this one, obviously, we've all probably heard The Vanishing Hitchhiker, right? It's a person traveling in a vehicle, meets this mysterious hitchhiker, and then all of a sudden the hitchhiker vanishes. And then you realize that actually was a ghost the whole time. Kind of like that whole Sixth Sense thing you got going in the movie.
Yeah.
Very similar idea. Again, you'll notice a lot of these actually have been translated to movies. Let's get into some of these urban legends.
Well, I think one that I'd like to start with is one that I'm sure everyone has heard of. And it's one that has based on a little bit of fact. And it's an urban legend that dates back to the 60s, right? We talked about when this terminology first starts to be developed. And it's the babysitter and the man upstairs legend. I'm sure you've heard that one before, right? Yeah. And it's basically, the legend details a teenage girl who's watching television at night while babysitting after the children were put to bed upstairs. There's different variations. Sometimes they're all watching TV together. And the phone rings. Unknown caller says, check the children. The girl dismisses it, right? But they keep on calling, dial back. Sometimes they're just breathing heavily. The babysitter calls the police, who then says, all right, we're going to trace the call. And then after the stranger calls again, the police return the call and tell her, leave immediately. And she runs out of the house. And the police are basically saying, the calls are coming from inside the house. Get out of there. I mean, I remember seeing this on just like commercials.
Yeah.
And then from different parts, sometimes the children survive, sometimes they don't survive, sometimes they kill everybody. Sometimes they throw clowns in there that oh no, the clown statue keeps on making these noises, and she calls the parents. The parents are like, we don't have a clown statue, and they comes and attacks them and everything like that. But it's actually based on a real life murder of a teenage babysitter by the name of Janet Kreisman. A lot of times that's kind of like cited as a source of the legend, and then it kind of just like spun from there. But it's definitely one that I remember hearing when I was a kid, because my older cousins kind of used to always tell me these legends and these like scary stories all the time. I'm thinking probably to freak me out.
Isn't that like the thing? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, why would you tell these stories? It's probably just to freak you out.
They're trying to get that. You get that frightened feeling, just like, wow, really? And then someone wants to talk about, let's go there because it's right here. We can go check out and see this ghost or whatever. So that's part of it too. It's part of just like, I guess, being younger, and it's also just people are interested in this sort of thing, like the macabre of it, the thrill of it, things like that. But that was one that I always remember when I saw that popping on this, like, oh yeah, of course that one, the babysitter upstairs. I mean, they use that in so many movies. When a stranger calls, scream, like that is used so many times in movies. That the call's coming from in the house. I don't know how they can trace it directly inside the house. Nowadays, I guess I can trace anything with the cell phones. But
another thing that's kind of interesting is when you think about particular urban legends is that they say they show society's fears at that current time. I don't know if you saw that. So like if society's very violent, if there's a lot of murders, then like the urban legends that start growing around that time deal with that. Hitchhikers, this is, 70s, 80s. That was like a thing at the time. So they always in some way, shape, or form offer an insight into like fears of state of society at that given time, besides the fact that, they're kind of fun.
Just look at that last one, right? What's scarier than someone coming into your house and killing your kids?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get worse than that.
Like that's going to scare anybody. That's going to scare kids because, your parents aren't home. That's going to scare the babysitters or the, whoever's watching the kids, and scare the parents. So that's kind of like the trifecta of fear. Ooh, right there. So.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Freaking me out already, Pete. You're freaking me out.
This is crazy. The licked hand. I've heard that one before. Right, you probably heard this one. So if you're a pet lover, right, this could be an interesting one for you. So this is an urban legend that basically depicts a scared young girl. Sometimes it's just a woman. It doesn't have to be a young girl, depending on who you hear it from. Spends the night at home, and she's home alone. And while she's trying to fall asleep, she hears this like weird dripping noise coming from her bathroom. And she's like really spooked, so she doesn't want to get out of the bed. So she kind of curls up under her covers, but she reaches down to kind of find reassurance in her faithful dog, who always licks her hand from the floor. So like while she's laying there spooked, she like puts her hand down, and the dog licks her hand the whole time, and she calms her down. She goes to sleep. And the next morning, she decides to investigate the strange sound, right? So she gets up, goes to the bathroom, and she finds her beloved pet is slaughtered. And then there's a terrifying message that's written in blood across the bathroom wall that says humans can lick hands too.
But again, I mean, that's one of those ones that more like a scary story. I don't know if that's like one of these ones like based in fact, but because who's going to do that? Like you can get away, but I guess it could happen.
I guess.
But yeah, the lick hand. Yeah, humans can lick hands too.
All right. What else you got?
Well, like I said, there's a whole bunch from all over the place, but I saw one that was popping up quite a bit. I guess we'll go with this one. This one's from New Jersey, right? Our home state.
Good old Jersey.
And good old New Jersey, and which has this whole series of these. Every state does, but like obviously everyone's heard of like Weird New Jersey and stuff like that. This one's kind of from.
I've been published by Weird New Jersey like 3 times.
Yeah, there you go. Cheap pop right there, Pete. But that works.
I was. I mean, I have been. Actually, the current issue that just came out, I have a story in it. Just throwing that out there.
Your life is very weird, so it works out. Yeah, it works out perfectly.
All right, go.
But so it's on Clinton Road, which is in Passaic County, New Jersey, right by where I used to grow up. And there's this saying, and there's a lot of legends about sightings around that area, like ghosts, strange creatures, witches, Satanists, all rumored to be just kind of in this area, right?
Yes.
Of New Jersey there, right near Route 23, if people who are around the area know. And it's also true, it has a notoriously long traffic like that. I think that's one reason why they're saying a lot of these urban legends pop up around this area. It's just like, it's a double intersection, and it causes motorists, sometimes you're waiting for over 5 minutes in total, which is a long time for the light even to change.
But you should also mention that once you get going, I mean, I've been on Clinton Road at night in my Jeep, with the top of doors off when I was like 17, and there was no lights. It's just the
Yeah,
woods.
it's just woods. It's just woods on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
freaky.
that's basically what it is, and it's by like a reservoir and stuff like that. So it's kind of just like out there. There's been a lot of times there too, like on in the '80s, they found the body of a cyclist, and they didn't find him until like hours later, and he was being eaten by turkey vultures. Right, so you have that there, and it was actually found out later that he was murdered by Richard Kuklinski, which was actually the Iceman. Have you heard of him? He was like this
Yep,
serial
yep.
killer from New Jersey, a mob, basically like a mob hitman. But anyway, so that kind of adds to this legend and folklore of Clinton Road. But the one that I remember going there for was the Ghost Boy Bridge. So what basically happened is there's a legend that if so you put a quarter in the middle of the road where the yellow line is at one over the bridge of Clinton Road, it's also known
Mhm.
as Dead Man's Curve near the reservoir. At midnight, it was supposed to be returned to you by a ghost boy, all right, who drowned while swimming below, or he fell in. There's like by Stone Edge Bridge, like different stories. So, and sometimes people say like the ghost boy will show up, and others they say the ghost pushes the people into the water and in order to save them, pushes them away from the water, away from the bridge in order to save them. But there's all these talks about this like ghost boy and stuff like that. There's even claims that seen a ghost Camaro driven by a girl who supposedly died in a separate crash, but he's also there. And so this other one saying there's two park rangers that come there at night, that they're two ghosts of park rangers that died there in 1983, who died on the job in 1939, excuse me. So there's all these things that are like going on there. And that if you do it, you go there at certain times, that's what's going to happen. So the coin is going to be returned to you. Or you're going to leave it there and you're going to go home. The next day, you're going to wake up, there's the coin. Oh, there's my quarter. And
It's a
I
freaky
remember
place.
going there. We did it. And to this day, I did not get my quarter back. So I'm not sure what happened.
That
But I'm not saying now if I wake up tomorrow and on my bed, it's going to be kind of freaky. I'm not
would
going
be
to lie,
freaky.
but
That's it. I'm
that
gonna
would
call your
freak me out.
wife and be like, "All right, you gotta make sure you leave that on this pillow." Dang it! Why did I say something? That would have been
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, since we're in New
Try it.
Jersey, let's stick with another New Jersey one. The 13th Child, also known
Oh,
as the
yes.
Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil, right? That's how we get the hockey team.
Right. So this it's basically 1735. A woman lives in the woods of New Jersey's secluded Pine Barrens, right? She cursed the birth of her 13th child because the child was born a freak of nature. It was like this. It was bat winged and looked basically like a devil. It was like a creature, right? Basically banishes this child, and this 13th child starts to terrorize the area ever since. And becomes known as the New Jersey Devil. And this was actually is such a big deal early 20th century that so widespread. There were so many people sightings of said that they saw this Jersey Devil that the Philadelphia Zoo actually posted a $10,000 reward for the capture of the New Jersey Devil. So it got pretty intense there at one point. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a Jersey Devil, but some people claim to have seen it. I
Well,
mean,
in the Pine Barrens, yeah, I know. Remember, there's some pictures of it. I know my son is like obsessed with it at times. Like, he'll be like, "Is this real, Dad?" He hears about the trees. Definitely watches like some of those unexplained shows and stuff like that. Basically, shows I probably shouldn't be letting him watch at his
I was
age.
going to say, right? Although we did
But
do a podcast on Bigfoot, right? I mean, that's like our version of Bigfoot in New
yeah,
Jersey. It's the
that's the New
Jersey Devil.
Jersey version of it, I guess. Yeah, and if flies around and stuff, all these different things, people I think have images of it. So I mean, it's something out there. But again, it's become part of folklore. Look, like I said before, that you have the New Jersey Devil hockey team. You go by the Pine Barrens, they just sell Jersey Devil stuff. That's just what there is out there. You have these from all different states. Like when I saw that, what I've noticed too, a lot of them reading about the ones from different states is that a lot of the stories kind of overlap. Like
Yep.
they involve like a bridge, right, water, a couple, and that's the next one I saw from Alabama, which was Hell's Gate Bridge. But I remember hearing very similar stories, even right here from New Jersey, about this. About what basically happened was in 1950s, there was a young couple driving over the bridge, and they somehow drove off the bridge right late at night, and they died. They both drowned. So the legend associated with it, or one of the two legends, is that if you drive your car out in the middle of the bridge and turn off your lights, that the couple will appear in your car. And the proof of that is that there's going to be like there's going to be wet spots in your car where they were sitting, which would freak me out if you just like
Yeah. You
look
think?
down and sort of see what. The other, which is how the bridge could have got its name, is belief that if you drive over the bridge and look over your shoulder halfway through, that the scenery behind you turns into a portal to hell itself, and
What?
you see like burning flames and stuff like that, which potentially to curb ghost hunters and bored teenagers. Today, the bridge is actually closed to cars. You're not allowed to drive over it, and it's in a lot of like disrepair. That walking across it is like discouraged because it could pretty much fall apart, but it's still there, and it's going to become part of like it's like urban legend in Alabama, but It's kind of like they don't want people walking on it. So a lot of conspiracy people are like, oh, see, they don't even want people even going on anymore because if you do, you're going to open up a gate to hell. So I
There's
saw a lot of stuff like that.
a lot of bridges in these
A lot of
stories.
bridges.
Like,
Bridges are freaky.
right, the Bunny Man. With this one is from Virginia. So Bunny Man, basically, there's some dude in Virginia
Who wears a
that
bunny
apparently
costume?
dresses up. Do you see this one? He dresses up as a rabbit, and then he winds up killing people with an axe. But then there's also this entire bridge that's named after him, after like this axe murderer. It's called the Bunnyman Bridge. And around Halloween time, apparently throughout October, this guy goes around and then kills and skins rabbits, and then hangs these skinless rabbits, their bodies, off of his Bunnyman Bridge. And apparently people go there in like October to like see if there's any skinned bunnies. What did the
That's
bunny ever do to you?
that's kind of freaked out. So he's basically like a demented furry, right?
Right? I mean, what is this? The other one, the hook one, this one, again,
You hear
literally,
that one
this is
everywhere. That one's
screaming.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's just screaming, I know what you did last summer. So it gives you the idea, right? But it's a creepy urban legend. Basically, it's a serial killer with a hook for a hand. And apparently, it always stalks couples that are like parked in cars in remote areas. And it starts off like if you do that, there was one time supposedly that a couple heard a scraping sound on the car door and they freaked out. So they started driving away from the spot. And then once they were a safe distance away, they stopped the car. They got out to inspect it and they realized that the serial killer's hook was like lodged in the door. Again, this has been around since the 80s, eventually became a movie in the 1990s. Like a lot of these, really. Screaming Jenny was a good one. I heard this one when actually I went on a ghost tour in Harper's Ferry. Jenny was a poor woman, no family, right? Lived along the railroad in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. And one day she was warming up some food over a campfire, and a spark flies from the fire and catches her dress. She screams for help. The fire grows bigger, basically engulfs her in flames. In a last chance attempt, she fell onto rather the train tracks, trying to get the attention of an approaching train, but it was too late. So the train basically hit Jenny and just like broke her into pieces. And today, people believe that, like on the anniversary of her death, Jenny's burning ghost can be seen on the very same West Virginia tracks. And some people say you can still hear her screams at late at night.
Yeah, what I noticed too is there's a lot of ones with kids.
Yep.
You know, like spooky kids or the ghost of kids again. So it's because it's going to scare kids. But one that I saw that's probably a bit more modern. You start hearing about it in the late '90s, but it really started to grow with the creepy pastas, which are like these like I guess like urban legend type of forums and stuff like that.
Did you say creepy pastas?
Creepy pastas, yeah. You never heard about creepy pastas?
No.
Stories and stuff like that people would really.
Okay. Cool.
So they're like these horror related legends that share around. They're like people share them on the internet. Ghosts, zombies, murderers. The one that is really caught fire on there was one known as the black-eyed children or black-eyed kids. And they're basically kind of like paranormal creatures that look like kids between 6 and 16 years old. They have pale skin and black eyes, like no pupils, just pure black eyes. Supposedly they're seen hitchhiking or begging or sometimes coming to people's doorsteps and just like asking for things, but like weird things, like things that you might not have, like not like they're asking for like help or anything. They're just asking for like, can I have a glass of water? Can I have some sugar? It's like just weird things like that. And people talk about, if they keep on seeing they feel like weak and stuff around these black-eyed kids. Now, there's no proof they actually exist, and most people say it's just like these creepy pastors or like just people being afraid. But you're seeing a lot more of sightings or reports of them taking over, and it's kind of like really spooky too. If you have Google like pictures of them and stuff like that with the black-eyed kids, okay, it's like these like soulless, emotionless kids. Like the bob haircuts, this like super pale skin, but he's like dark, just pure black eyes. People like soulless, and they're just staring at you, being like, "Can I come in?"
That's crazy. So this one's like an urban legend, but it's actually based on a real event. You've heard this one, which is the story of Mercy Brown and the New England vampire panic in like late 1800s, 1890s. So in late 1800s, Rhode Island, people believed that tuberculosis was caused by the dead consuming their surviving family members. So
That's sound.
Yeah, so they thought like if someone died from tuberculosis and then other people in the family started dying from tuberculosis, it was that first person, like case number one, that was actually consuming the family members. So they thought it was like a vampire, really. So the only way to deal with this sort of vampire, they would actually dig up the remains of the dead, the first person to die in the family, and try to burn their body. And there was an actual case of this. It was the instance of Mercy Brown. And Mercy's entire family got tuberculosis, and it was assumed that she caused it to happen, that she was the vampire. So her grave was dug up. This is the crazy part. They dug her grave up, and apparently there were like little signs of decomposition, and the body appeared to have changed positions from how they actually put her in there. It's still considered Mercy Brown's gravestone one of the spookiest places in Rhode Island. I mean, there's a whole lot of websites dedicated to it. It was just this idea of it was part of a bigger New England vampire panic. Like people would dig up the first one that died and burn the body. But yeah, rituals to banish the undead manifestation. Kind of crazy. So,
Yeah, no, that's
urban
one of those
legend.
scary things. Before, P, I forgot to mention, we mentioned the Bunny Man before, right?
Hmm.
Like they actually believe that that is actually true. That that's actually like true story from the 1970s. The Bunny
That it was a
Man.
man dressed as a bunny killing people.
They actually did that. Yeah, yeah. So it's actually like a true story. I meant to say that before. So,
I don't know, like, why would you choose a bunny suit though? I
well, it's
don't.
just one of those things. It's like unexpected, and it was around like the Halloween time, and it was like he basically he killed a young couple. So
Uh,
that's what he basically did. He dressed up as a bunny suit. And it was never apprehended, but it was by the Fairfax Station Bridge. That's why it was renamed the Bunny Man Bridge. And
hmm.
it's a popular name. Even Google Map uses it today. Like if you can Google Bunny Man Bridge. Sorry, I didn't mean to go back.
No, but it's
One
fine.
other one,
But isn't that crazy though? Like, bridge is named and adopted based on like a killer that
urban
killed
legend.
someone
Yeah,
there.
so it becomes like
Cool, cool, cool. This one's been around. The next one, Bloody Mary. I mean, I feel like
yes,
this one has changed a lot too. But probably one of the most famous, oldest urban legends. Bloody Mary. Apparently, if you go into a room with a mirror, you turn off the lights and you look into the mirror while you say Bloody Mary 3 times. This girl Mary will appear. Right in the earlier versions of this tale. Um, it would be if you were unmarried, if you were a younger woman, you were unmarried, and you did this, then you would see the face of a man that you'd marry in the mirror, or you would see a skull, which would mean that you would die before you ever got married. Um, yeah, but eventually it got into like you would see bloody face of evil spirits, and you better not summon Bloody Mary. But like I feel like there's got to be a movie made about this. I mean,
yes, there's a
right?
whole bunch. Yeah, well, Candyman is based on that too.
Not great.
And there was also like a bunch of The Forbidden, which was a filmmaker based like that. Another one, They Came Through the Bathroom Mirror, which was about like something very similar to that. There's just these like chilling stories about like paranormal. They were all based on one of the most. They were all I read, but they were all basically based on these like idea that if there was like this woman by the name of Ruby McCoy was killed by a group of intruders from her apartment through a gap in the wall through the
Okay.
medicine cabinet. So they came actually through the medicine cabinet, and that just kind of got like changed over time and stuff like that. That they came actually through the mirror, but they actually broke into her apartment through the medicine cabinet and killed her. So
What?
that's kind of like the basis for like the movies like Candyman, and they killed her through the medicine cabinet. The flimsy barrier, basically just like sheetrock, they were able to break through. But so
The
it can happen. They're just not magically coming through the mirror. They're just coming from the wall behind it.
Interesting too though, because I used to always like watching scary movies, and then my wife hates scary movies, and that pretty much ended my scary movie adventure. Because since we were been together, which has been like 20 something years, it's like, you want to watch this? No. One of the movies that really freaked me out, which I basically, from what I read, is an allegory to what do you call it? To Bloody Mary, is The Ring, except instead of a mirror, it's a TV.
It kind of makes it more modern, I guess, right?
Yeah,
It's
but that
more
was a
watching TV and whatnot.
freaky, freaky movie.
One of our modern one was it's again proven to be somewhat true is the Polybus video game. So according to legend, it was this game called Polybus. It was released in 1981, supposedly in Portland, Oregon, and the game was designed by the government as a kind of a psychological experiment, and it functioned almost like a drug. Like it gave the players seizures and nightmares, and it was being an arcade. So the government officials would come in, extract information about the
Oh, they thought it
players
was
through
like
the
CIA,
future.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, though the game was probably not real. They think there's some like urban there's some truth to it, is that there are certain video games, particularly one called Tempest, which came out in the 80s, that actually was so it would cause epileptic seizures. This is before they would do those like announcements, be careful.
Yep.
They would cause like motion sickness and others. And there were a lot of reports that FBI agents did actually go around and inspect arcades around the time, But really, they were there looking for like gambling and stuff like that. They weren't really looking to like, but they were FBI agents actually going to arcades in the 80s, but they're looking for like gambling and things. So, but they see that, right? They're seeing people have seizures. That's kind of how the urban legend kind of started. But there's no evidence that that game ever exists. But the game Tempest from 1981, if you suffered from epilepsy, it would cause you to have a seizure. So that is true.
Oh damn! I'm pretty sure I have that game downstairs.
Well,
No, I don't know.
be careful
We're not
when
going to try
playing
it out. Oh, I did Kidney Heist. I mean, I feel like
Oh
I've heard,
yes,
that was one of the
yes.
earliest one I've heard.
I
When
remember
was
hearing
younger.
about that one. Everyone's like, "Oh, it happened to my friend of mine."
Yeah,
Happened to
that's
my friend's
right.
brother. I
Which
hear it all the
makes
time too.
sense.
Happened to my friend's brother. Like, yeah,
Uh,
okay. Where is he now? Like,
which is literally like how these the main component of these is it happened to my friend's brother. But the Kidney Heist. So in this tale, a young man is basically seduced by his beautiful woman, and then they wind up going to a hotel room. And the next morning, he wakes up in a bathtub full of ice to find out one of his kidneys has been removed and apparently, for sale on the black market.
Yeah, Ice is saying, "Well, call 911." Right?
Yeah, like it's interesting. I had a teacher in high school that truly believed he was abducted by aliens, and he
Oh,
was told, he was told not to talk about it by the Board of
I don't mean to
Education.
laugh.
No, I know. I don't even know if he's still around. I mean, he was an older guy, and this was years ago. But he was told by the board of education not to talk about it. So naturally, we always talked about it. We're like, so what happened? He's like, oh, I can't talk about it, but I woke up and they did experiments on me, and like for some reason, every time I think of this kidney thing, I imagine my old teacher like waking up in the bathtub because aliens did experiments on him. He was an odd dude, very eclectic guy.
Just like we talked about before with the killer in the house, you also have the kill in the back seat, right?
Okay.
So it's a common like car urban legend where you hear about this all over the United States, and it's actually pretty popular in England also. The legend involves a woman usually who's driving and being followed by a strange car or truck, and the pursuer keeps on driving, getting really close, flashing the high beams, tailgates on her, and sometimes even like rams her car. And she finally makes it home. She realizes that the driver was trying to warn her that there was a murderer or a rapist or an escaped mental patient, something like that, hiding in the back seat, right? And each time the man's have to attack her, the driver behind had used the high beams to scare the killer, after which he ducked down or rammed into him and stuff like that. So it's kind of just showing two things, right? It's showing like the women like fear of a man following them, but also, the man being the savior, where because she's not trusting of the guy following her, she's going to get killed or attacked by this other guy who's actually in the back seat, which would actually be like really impossible for that ever to happen. They were saying. I remember like Mythbusters talked about this, like for just like someone else to see someone in the back car and know that in the back seat, know that person was like a killer or like a escaped mental patient just by like seeing that, and that by those flashing lights is probably not going to like make that person being not to attack anymore, and
Yeah.
the person driving would not notice or know there was someone in the back seat and stuff about to attack them. But it is like a scary idea.
Yeah, and especially like the ones where you could think of like, I don't know about this one in particular, but the next one I'm about to talk about has some basis in it. Especially when you like there is some truth in the basis of it. It makes it so much free. Like when you think of what do you call it, the Amityville house? What is it called?
Amityville Horror, yeah.
Amityville Horror, right?
One of the most
I mean,
haunted places in America, I suppose.
74. Basically, there's a mass murder. This 23-year-old dude winds up killing his entire family where they're sleeping, and then somebody purchased the house after it, and then they only last like 3 weeks, and they're like, I got to get out of here because there's ghosts. There's a lot of urban legends. That this one obviously it's not an urban legend per se because I mean there was a murder that happened there, but there's a lot of urban legends that deal with the fact that houses that are purchased are actually purchased above land that might be cursed from before your house was built.
Yeah.
Indian burial sites, right? Wasn't it? That was the big
yeah.
one. And I don't think there's I mean, God knows, but I wouldn't think there's that many Indian burial mounds or sites throughout the United States. But the premise is around that your house might be haunted because it's almost like, did you ever think about what was there before your house was built?
That was the whole idea too of like how like the Europeans took all the Native American
Yeah.
lands and it was like a sacred. Before that, we turned into like a shopping mall or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's all those
Well,
things.
think about
Pet
this: Stephen
Sematary.
King's Shining, Pet Cemetery, right? Like,
Yeah, all those things about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just adds that extra lore to it because it's like unknown to like
Yeah.
a lot of people.
what's you ever like? I never wanted to know that. Like, if anyone ever died in your house, I don't want to know that.
They have to tell you.
They do.
So
Well, they don't have to tell you if you don't. Well, they have to tell you if you ask. I don't think they have to
no,
bluntly
they have to
say
tell
it.
you. And this is, I sounds like an urban legend right now. But when my cousin bought his first house, they told him that there was the baby died in the house. There was a baby that died in the house.
Oh, I wouldn't buy that house.
So, well, he bought the house, but like there was a baby that died in the house. Yeah, it
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
like because of the house. I don't know what happened. I think they just like was very
See, I
young and
thought
just
I
passed
thought
away.
they don't. They have to tell you if you ask, but they don't like put it on
No, they have to
paperwork.
tell you. I think they have to tell you someone passed away in the house because it changes the value. These people don't want to do it. They have to tell you there was a murder in the house also.
Well, I would think that, right? I mean,
Because then it's a crime scene, or was at some point.
yeah, I don't know if I would buy a house like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
never
but
know.
your
Or some
house and my
people,
house are not that old, so
some people want to live in that type of place.
well, especially when you buy like a historic home, right? From like this one's from 1730s. I'm like, yo, a lot of things
Yes,
might have happened in this
some
house.
stuff went down there. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we
Um,
actually, as a historical society, in my town, we just got a house that we're trying to preserve, and it's from 1700s. And the downstairs, like the basement itself, looks a little like some stuff might have happened in that basement in 1700s.
well, those things are just sketchy. When I say sketchy, just mean they just look at it because they're just so old and just
Old,
like how they
yeah.
built them, and they're
It's like
usually
wine
small.
cellars,
You don't
and
understand like how much smaller people were
yeah,
too back
that
then.
is
So
true.
like it's just like different. It's like much more confined space and stuff like that.
Nuts. All right, let's do a few
Um,
more, and then we'll
one
call
yeah,
it a night.
one that I definitely wanted to talk about was also one that's a little bit more modern. And I remember hearing about this from like students in school back in the day, and then it actually became something that led to some real crimes, right? And that's the Slender Man. I'm sure you heard of this
Yes,
one, right?
that's a new one. Yep.
It's a new one. So it really started, I think, kind of an internet like meme created again by those creepy pastas, but it really surged in the mid 2000s. And it's basically resembling this thin man, unnaturally tall. Like he was very tall, different 6 feet, other was like 7 feet, 9 feet tall, stuff like that, with a blank and like usually featureless face, wearing a black suit. And he said to like stalk, abduct people, traumatize people, mostly particularly children. And it's not to tied to any particular story. He usually like, appears in like other works in fiction, like at the end. And so that or he just appears usually when you see the Slender Man, something bad's going to happen. But there actually was a case in New York, I believe it was, where these girls, I'm sure you heard about this, they surrounded and these two girls stabbed one of their best friends because they said the Slender Man told them to do it. And there was a whole documentary about it on HBO. And luckily the girl did survive, but they brutally attacked her and they just said, well, we did this for the Slender Man. So like
That is
that just
so
shows how
freaky.
some of these things they can get so like into it and just believe it so much because they believe that if they didn't do it, the Slender Man was going to kill them if they didn't attack their friend.
It's nuts. I mean, it really started as a Photoshop competition where people
Yeah,
would take pictures and like basically superimpose this like supernatural element onto it, and that's how Slenderman was created. I mean, it's crazy. Again, definitely one of the newer ones because this adds the component of the internet to it. It's kind of how it started, which is interesting. There's a food, there's a lot of food urban legends. Like, do you really know what you're eating kind of thing, right? Like, oh, you think this is what it, I think this is. This is really not
mm-hmm.
what you think it is. And some of them deal like with ethnic things. I'm sure you've probably heard that growing up, as I have as well. But it was KFC. There was something more recently with KFC. Came out that they were breeding genetically mutated chickens for their food. Then
Yeah. And there's
obviously,
one that like remember like KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken had to change their name to KFC because it wasn't chicken anymore. Like they couldn't call it chicken. I remember hearing that, which is untrue.
yeah,
KFC
that's
did
what I'm
not come
saying. It was
out
an
with this.
urban legend. Yeah,
They just kind of changed it because they just everything happened like the early '90s, right? Because everything was kind of like shortening their names is what they
yeah.
did and make it like
Yeah, but
cool.
it's this starts with but the urban legend says that's because they were like breeding literally genetically made chickens that were not real. So the spider bite came up a few
Oh
times,
yes, I remember that one. I
right?
remember seeing like a picture of that one. Yeah,
Yeah, so basically the story goes, a woman travels in some foreign land. So if you're on vacation somewhere and you get some kind of a bug bite, um, that's the urban legend. It's like, oh, I hope it's not a spider bite. And the idea is that this woman, it looked like a pimple on her face, and she tried to like basically pop the zit, and she couldn't do it, and eventually kept on growing. And then one night, the zit popped, and hundreds of little baby spiders emerged from her face. That's kind of gross.
one that since Halloween is always coming is that there's you always hear about this like check your candy because there could be like razor blades and the apples and stuff. I never really known anyone who gave out apples on Halloween, but there used to be in the 80s and 90s, the early 90s, a lot of emergency rooms. You could come and put your, they would do it for free. They would run the candy through an x-ray machine to like alleviate fears and make sure there's no like anything like pins or needles or razor blades. And there's never been a confirmed story of razor blades or any poison candy, but there was one. There's a lot of like fake ones, but there was a father who Ronald O'Brien, who actually poisoned a bunch of pixie sticks with cyanide and handed them out to children's neighborhoods. One was his son and daughter. He was after he'd taken out because he took expensive life insurance policies out on them. He did that to actually, but the only one who actually died, unfortunately, was his son. The other kids never actually ate the pixie sticks because the parents noticed that they were like closed back up and stapled, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. Why is the pixie stick like stapled back together? And they actually brought it to, and they were able to trace down who it was, and he was sentenced to life in jail. He said he didn't do it, but everyone, there's evidence to show he did. But imagine that, like, you're giving out pixie sticks because he wanted to get the money.
Nuts.
So that's the only one that actually did it. So I guess it has happened then, just not razor blades, just cyanide and pixie sticks.
Well, I guess, I mean, we could go on all night, but let's just finish up some of the bigger ones too. Roswell, the UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. I mean, technically that is an urban legend, right?
What happened there? And we have a podcast on that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I'm almost positive. Pretty sure we did. Again, it's been so many, I forget now. But what we know is in 1947, something really big crashed in this ranch, right, northwest of Roswell. And U.S. military quickly come to retrieve the debris, whatever's left over. I think our podcast kind of talks about the fact that it was experimental aircraft. But people believe that there was something that the government wanted to cover up. And that's where the mystery comes out. One, actually, Jesse Mercel Jr., he's son of one of the military officers that was cleaning the site, later described the debris he saw his father bring home as being made out of like foil with these like I-beams. And that kind of where it starts, this idea of, this was alien technology. So technically, aliens in Roswell is an urban legend. Do you have any good ones?
I think since we're doing let's have like a non-spooky one.
Okay.
One that I'm sure people have known, and that's the urban legend that Walt Disney had his body frozen, or some versions just his head, and he's placed in some sort of chamber.
Yeah.
Located beneath Disney World, particularly Epcot. That underneath Epcot is Walt Disney's body. I remember hearing this when I was a kid too. And
me too. I remember hearing this when I was a kid.
They're going to thaw him out when they can find out how to bring people back to life, and then Walt Disney will be back. They do the same thing. Supposedly, the legend is the same thing about Ted Williams, the famous. That's a baseball player, Pete. In case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Famous baseball player. Supposedly, he's frozen as well. That's like an argument. And there is some truth to those things. There are those cryostasis chambers that people can pay and have their bodies frozen in case there's a way to like bring them back one day.
Is that real?
There are places that do that. It's like private companies. I don't know how well it works or how it would even work because you're also freezing the body. I think a lot of people. I remember watching something on the TV and they're like, I don't know how much it would work because the cells are getting destroyed from the extreme cold.
Right.
The person did already. They weren't frozen when they were alive. They were frozen after they passed away already. So, but who knows? Maybe one day. There's no proof that Walt Disney is actually there. His family says no, that's not true. So,
yeah. I mean, science fiction loves that idea. I mean, this has been used so many times. We could go all day, but I think this is a really good introduction to urban legends. There's a lot in there, and you'll also realize very quickly that a lot of the horror movies you have seen stem from some form or type of an urban legend.
A whole bunch out there, yes.
Yes. So in case anybody wants to contact us, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening. You could find us at www.historyteacherstalkingpodcast.com. If you have any questions, comments, or reactions, please feel free to shoot us an email. If you have any urban legends that you think we should share, let us know. We could always put it on our Facebook page or Twitter or Instagram. And we'll go from there. So thank you so much, everyone, and have an awesome week.
Stay safe, everybody.
I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast, and if you would like to email us, you can do so at historyteacherspodcast@gmail.com.